morning. It is June 7th, 2019. My name is Bev. I am the host of the Bev D Show. A little something we got going on here. A show about everything and nothing and all that good stuff. Little dream of mine that I had as a little girl, and I never realized I might be in a situation where I could do this. And once I started doing this, I realized the importance of the number one, meaning if it was one listener or many, it brought joy in my heart. But it also, I'm cheating a little bit. It's therapy for me. It really helps me kind of sort through things and get some thoughts out there in the universe and stir things up a bit. And I enjoy hearing from you guys as far as emails and such. So thank you very much for that. Everything from recommendations to, compliments, whether it's messages on my social media, and or if you're simply sending me an email. Thank you very much. It is so greatly appreciated. I'm the youngest of 7, so all my life, trying to get attention in that big old house of 9, was probably to a fault. And then I realized through comedy, maybe, or being silly while I was in school, that was another way of engaging and attracting people and that sort of thing. We had a training class this week, and I was sharing with them. I'm actually a sales trainer and a recruiter by day, and I was sharing a story with them. I have on the right side of my neck, it is what is called a port wine stain, and it is really supersonic red and, like a pinky, purpley kind of red. And I'm very fair skinned, very ivory white, so the contrast is pretty significant. And I was sharing with them, it's so minor now when I have perspective of what life is and who people, and how people are really harmed and hurt and handicapped and sick and things like that. But the story is kind of worth telling once in a while, in that I have, as I said, youngest of 7. I have 6 brothers and sisters before me that are absolutely gorgeous. They all had perfect teeth, hair, eyes. And then I come along, and ultimately, by the time I got into my adolescent years, we realized that I was going to need braces. I had this red mark on my neck, and so it was a couple of things that, really, as a human being and putting yourself out there, because, we can't hide what is our skin, our arms, our legs, and such. We can hide what's inside and how we're feeling sometimes, but we can't hide that outward appearance and image, and that really became very clear to me that it's important and that people are affixed with it, whether it's girls wearing makeup, and I do, our hair color, our body image, all through school, all those things. So, but when I was real little, I know that my mom and dad really worried about it and everything, and they tried several different ways to have it removed, everything from dermabrasion to skin grafting, and what we ended up deciding is simply to put makeup on it. But through the years, that didn't matter. Boys will be boys, and kids are mean. And so in grade school, I was made fun of. And growing up in the 60s and 70s, I was called redneck, because that was a real cool thing that came out if somebody was a redneck, and all this stuff. So I was made fun of. And what I learned to do very early on was counter that with humor or sarcasm or bitter whips, if you will. So if somebody made, and I was sharing this with the class this week, if somebody made fun of my birthmark or whatever, it really hurt my feelings, because there really, at that point, to me, seemed like there was nothing we could do about it other than trying to cover it up with this makeup. And so I would say stupid things like, yeah, well, you know what? Uh, I can cover this birthmark up with makeup, but you'll always be an idiot, for example. Or um, if they were heavy set and they were making fun of my birthmark, and I would say something stupid like, yeah, well, again, I can cover up my birthmark. The birthmark is what makes me, but you're really an example to be making fun of somebody. You're fat. See, I would say, that was my defense mechanism. Well, what started happening was because of those quick whips and quick comebacks, is we all started laughing at one another. And I started learning very early on that people who make fun of people in such a bitter way, that it's inside they're sad. And something happened at home, or it was their upbringing or their environment, that even though they might be the cutest, coolest guy on the football team or whatever, they may have had a father that was pushing them to be perfect. Or, and so they would let out their stress perhaps on someone who was weak, like myself. And so I learned very early on that that was more about them than it was me. So it was more about, this person, if they're going to be so mean, they actually have something much greater wrong with them. So once I started connecting the dots, I started trying to make people laugh. And so I would. And it was, I had a brother, my brother Richard. He has since passed away, but he always told really, stupid jokes, and I would take him on the road with me, and to school and wherever I was. And I have, like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 joke books. And my mom, she would get these for me for my birthday, for Christmas. And, I'm thinking back on it now. Truly, I started thinking about this today, and believe me, I don't know what's going on right now, because this is not exactly what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about something else, but sometimes that's what happens to me. Um, I start on one thing, and if there's one thing I love to do is talk and tell stories. But I look back on it, and I think that perhaps she was helping me through. That as a mother, you don't want your kids to hurt, and you don't want them to feel sad. So you try and figure out ways to help them through it. And I think it's kind of funny that it was humor, that she was, maybe she thought I was funny, and, maybe start telling these jokes that I read in joke books. And I had these 2 buddies, they were boys in first grade, and we would call each other on the phone and read riddles. And it's really funny because these 2 boys turned out to be the absolute smartest in our class, carrying through. And it's funny that I got to hang with them while I was a little girl. And we would just call on the phone, and we would just read joke after joke. The whole "it's raining cats," and the cats and dogs, and they're making poodles. Yeah, something like that about puddles. But truly, I start thinking about those things, and how we're marked, and how we get through, and how days start off, and we have to look at those things, at what really makes us, and our makeup. And I wanted to share that with the class, because I know that every time that they start, I don't wear makeup on it anymore. And I know people might wonder if they don't know, and if they're not familiar with these type of what people ended up calling them birthmarks. They're kind of curious. So I always just walk right through it, and I say, hey, it's a birthmark, and it's actually called a port wine stain. And I share that with them. But in the end, the goal is to tell my story as something that will make them. I'm trying to help them feel comfortable, and not be affixed with it. And hey, what is it? And once you do that, then everybody's at ease, and there's a certain amount of comfort in the room. So then the next thing you know, we forget about it, and then nobody's looking at it, Bev. But see, I've had that all my life where I felt like someone, was looking at that. And I think that all of us, to a point, have that. That there might be something that we're either hiding inside, or there's a lot of us that it is on the outside, and we are exposed to the world, and we can't hide it. And I wake up every day. If you listen to the show, I wake up every day and I thank God for, allowing me to have another day on this earth. What does He want to do with me today? How does He want to use my soul? And so I lean into that, and I start off thinking one thing, just like I said. I start off going in one direction, and then all this came out. And so I guess my message, if you will, because it seems like it turns out there's some sort of message each day that encapsulates, that sums up what's on my mind and that I think might help someone. We're talking about one person. We're talking about helping one. We're talking about, being able to possibly have a positive impact on the universe, and the folks that are in it and wandering around. And, just go to an airport and you'll see, you'll see a lot of people running around, and they have a destination. They have a ticket in their hand. They know they're supposed to get on a plane, and they're running from gate to gate, or maybe they need to grab a bite to eat before they get on the plane. But you can just sit there, and we have a lot of lost souls. There's a lot of lost people roaming around. So we need each other, for one thing. We can't judge one another, for the next thing, because that not only will create inside you animosity, but it will, in addition, it'll put you in a place of where you think you're better or superior. Real simple rules, real basic rules we were taught from when we were very little, the golden rule. It really is. And you have permission to not be friends with everyone. You have permission to dislike someone for something that they have done. You have permission to be really angry in this world. But what I caution you against is something that I was wrapped up in, is allowing that to lead my life. That instead of doing greater or better things, or possibly giving me to the universe and to God and saying, what do you want to do with me? I was harboring, the anger, the resentment. And that ultimately ended up doing was, this self infliction of mental abuse. And that's why I caution against that, because then you're going to start thinking, bad things about yourself, and you'll start thinking negative things about yourself, and most important, your self-worth. So don't get all caught up in it. The greatest way to break free is to do things for others. Reach out, try and, whether it's telling somebody that honestly they look nice that day, or to do that simple thing. Everybody talks about holding doors open all the time. It really helps. Sometimes people have full hands, or they don't have full hands. You just get to look them in the eye and hold a door open. I had a completely little bit of an engaged conversation with a woman yesterday that in the parking lot, she said, do you need a cart? And she said, here, I've wiped off the handle for you and everything. And I just, and she said, we're just like hellos and stuff like that. I'll never see her again. But it was something that she reached out to do something kind. My heart felt a little warm and fuzzy, and I know damn well hers did. And so if you can do that in a day, in small ways, do that. I'm kind of bossing you around, because it'll help your heart. It'll help you be more productive at work and in your relationships. And it certainly will allow you to share yourself with us, because we can get into a place to where we're not. So it's Friday. and we got this. And it's always, I feel like every